This might be controversial. I just feel like his sort of ceiling and what he can do for his whole career is going to be similar to guys like Jimmy Garoppolo.
He's already pro ready. Yeah, I just went with him. He's the safest pick.
This might be controversial, but my number 3 is Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people have him number 1. A lot of people bring up the whole thing of he's the most NFL ready, all that kind of stuff. And I would agree that I think Kenny Pickett, for the most part, has the highest floor. But like you mentioned earlier, when we talk about preference, to me, my preference is I'm going after a guy that I think could potentially be a long-term franchise quarterback. And not just that, but like a potential top 10 guy. And so to me, I just don't really ever see that in Kenny Pickett's future. I think that he's going to be a solid QB, but I just feel like his sort of ceiling and what he can do for his whole career is going to be similar to guys like Jimmy Garoppolo or Ryan Tannehill or Baker Mayfield or some of these like middle of the pack guys that are around 16, 17, 18 best quarterback in the league. And don't get me wrong, I mean, especially for example, Ryan Tannehill, some of those guys can have top 10 production in the right scheme. And I think that's the same thing for Kenny Pickett. But the reason that I have him at number 3 is I don't feel like he necessarily has any elite traits. Now, I also think that he doesn't have any specific weaknesses that I'm like, wow, that's terrible, outside of the hand size. But I also don't think the hand size is that big a deal. I know some people love to focus on like that one specific thing, and really, bring a guy down for it. But like Joe Burrow was criticized for his hand size. And although his hands are bigger than Kenny Pickett's, I mean, look at what he's doing in the league. So I don't think that's going to be the end of the world for Kenny Pickett. I think that he can be an NFL starting quarterback right away. But once again, I don't know about like his long-term potential and what he can be. I just think there's sort of a limited ceiling to, what he can become just based on his physical gifts, and then overall just the way that he plays. So I think Kenny's a really good quarterback, but also he's, I believe, the oldest out of the bunch for the top 5 that we've listed. So yeah, I have Kenny Pickett at number 3.
It's going to be Mr. Kenny Pickett. I already alluded to, like he's already pro ready. He's very good at going through his progressions. Not as good as like a Joe Burrow or a Mac Jones, but he's there. And you did mention his age. I mean, that's to be expected of an older quarterback. Consistent thrower, like I mentioned. Him and Corral both are probably the most consistent throwers of the class. And I mean that by, they typically get the ball where they want to and in good spots for the, especially within that key 10 and under yard area. Those that, are gimmies or have to be gimmies in the NFL. You did mention, and I will point out, not a lot of. I don't see a lot of eliteness from him, which I can understand why someone would be down on him. He has a good arm, not going to be a great arm. He has good mobility. He does have a solid pocket presence. He can, move around and extend the play a little bit there, and stay in the pocket as well. I like his decision making once again, even outside of the pocket, willing to throw the ball away. If nothing's there, if he's improvising. You mentioned the hand size and gloves, which I don't think is that big of an issue. Only issue is that could come up especially with the gloves maybe. And I mentioned not like just an okay arm is if he has to play in late December, especially not in a dome. And granted, there's only like about 10, 12 quarterbacks that can really be unaffected by the weather because of how good they are, how tight their spiral is, how powerful their arm is, that it won't matter. But I feel like that could be a concern. I look at, guys like Jared Goff, who have, smaller hands, not saying it's a concern, but who have struggled in the poor weather. And I just have questions in regards to the gloves, too. That could be a concern. But nonetheless, yeah, I just went with him. He's the safest pick. Once again, I don't think he's a top 10 type talent. I think he's a first-round guy. I thought, especially, I don't think the Colts have a first-round pick, but if there was a team that was really needing a quarterback, like the Colts, maybe Seattle, but even then they have Drew Lock now. So I see Pickett as a first-round guy, middle to end. Like if I had to compare him to last year's class, I forgot where I had them ranked exactly, but he'd probably be in the Kellen, like behind Trey Lance near the Kellen Mondish area, him and Corral. So, yeah, I'm with you. Lower class, but yeah, Kenny Pickett's my number 1.